All right. And welcome, guys, to the Pig Show. Thank you very much for hanging out. We have someone in chat saying that the stream's frozen, but it's not. My preview's working, so I assume it's working for everybody else as well. Welcome, guys. We've got Bly on the show today for another show talking about, StarCraft life, everything else, hopefully having a free-flowing conversation. But I'm especially excited because I feel like you actually have a really unique perspective. You're someone who kind of grabs the game by the horns and really messes with your opponents. So thanks for coming on the show, Bly.
Hello, really happy to be here. And my playstyle is a bit different compared to everybody else. And it was actually funny when I was checking today's stream and I was like, how Zerg should play versus Terran right now? Because I know only all-ins. I checked Denver against Uthermal game and Denver 2 base Nidus on my spot. Like, okay. No need to watch anything. They learn from me. Why? Please show me how to play macro against Terran. How to go into macro against Terran, because it's usually tough for me.
Well, this is a thing which, I've been so impressed. I've really enjoyed, because I normally am very out of touch with the EU scene, but you've been staying up late for the American EPT Cup, so I've been getting to cast a lot of your games recently, and I've been gushing a lot about how good your creep spread is, because especially, I would say your matches against Uthermal are some of my favorite, because I think he gets ahead of you in economy and army almost every game, but you seem to always still win those games in my experience. Obviously, this is a small sample size, and it's your ability to always spread creep, be really annoying with a handful of Ravages and pick off. You always find extra depot kills and extra units with 4 Ravages at a point where you shouldn't be on his side of the map. And I'm like, how are you still killing stuff? And then you somehow always cover the map in creep. You do great backstabs. I think your engagements, army on army, has evolved so much compared to where you were in Heart of the Swarm as a player. I think I've seen everyone evolve so much as players, right? So I'm actually always impressed by your ability to shift into macro games from being maybe a bit behind in economy. Your ability to kind of go, okay, it's not the greatest economy, Banshee's just messed up your roach attack, but you can kind of, I think, are more comfortable playing Ling Bane macro off a small economy than most Zergs.
My macro is not very good, I would say. I'm usually floating to 1k, 2k minerals every game, and it's my huge mistake that if it would not happen, I would be way better player. About my control and positioning, actually, that's I think that I know where and when I can take engagements, and that's the only reason I'm not dying when usually I'm really behind in army plus economy. Usually I'm ahead in tech meantime, but it cannot do anything if you got attacked. But if you take a good position and somehow delay the attack, counter attack with a few units and stuff, you might actually come into the even game. And if I can win from loser position, I feel like actually if I play a game and I didn't go behind against Terran, I feel like I just put my legs on a table and I won the game, guys. I didn't lose the drones. I'm not behind. That's not happening every day, and I can just win the game here. So,
it's interesting, right? Because there is, like you said, there's army, economy. Those are the two things most people focus on, especially for Zerg players. Zerg players more than ever, they want to have just more drones, more bases. They can turn that into anything reactively. But it also puts them in a lot of positions where the opponent is the one who always gets to pick kind of how the fight happens. Whereas you, because you're more tech oriented, you're often picking how the fight happens. And I've seen you be way behind, but delay a push so long, for instance, where because you're kind of on like a handful of roaches and ravages from the early game and like speed banes, and you're kind of falling back and you're using this like space to just harass and pick them off. And the moment they get over eager, if you ever clear the siege tanks, I feel like people just get screwed because they end up so deep on creep and you get these baneling surrounds, and it's this different way of kind of leveraging your map control. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is, right, some people have called you a cheeser in the past, which I think is obviously a very loose term, doesn't mean anything. Something, he's so aggressive, he plays crazy strategies. The King of Proxy Hatch, of course, a title which I think you would enjoy. But I think there is something with aggression in StarCraft. A lot of people have passed down knowledge about how to defend, scout, react, get ahead, right? Everybody has learnt this. Everybody's taught it. Artosis goes on and on about it. In the early days of StarCraft, I think of like Liquid Ret and stuff just talking about this. But I think there's a lot of advantages to attacking that people don't think about. They always think of it as a zero-sum game where you attack, you have to kill things to do damage. Otherwise, it was a waste, especially as a Zerg player where those units could have been drones. But I think it's a lot more multifaceted than that, right? So there's one thing. Obviously, you can still, if you keep your units alive, you don't throw them away, counterattack potential. There's more potential to find value later in the game. Obviously, it's better to get it earlier. But I think more than that, whenever you attack, you see what your opponent's doing, right? So every single moment you are pressuring, you're attacking, you are scouting. Every single moment you are attacking or pressuring, you are also freaking your opponent out. You're pushing their vision into a corner of the map where they don't know what's happening behind it, and it's harder for them to kind of know what the next step is. So I feel like if you are a good aggressive player, even when your attacks aren't working, you're getting a lot more information and you're kind of keeping your finger on the pulse of your opponent and going, I know what you can do from here exactly. For them, you're a bit more of like a black box, right? They don't know exactly what the next step is that's coming. So they are forced more and more into generic play styles as like to try and cover whatever comes next. Whereas you can be very, very tailored, even off the back of a failed attack. You can be like, I'm going to do what I think is the perfect thing. You know, you can cut corners, be a bit greedy on some things. You can go super straight towards the tech path that's going to be really good for the situation. I think there's like this whole system of things that gets set up whenever you attack, even if the individual attack isn't trading well, but it creates a different game flow where you actually have a lot of information when you're in the driver's seat. So that's something I think a lot of fans out there don't really truly grasp, especially the ones who just want to sit there and build 80 drones every game and then like move their opponent's army. I think that's something like these are the skills you're the master of because that's your style, is being aggressive with these very fast tech paths. So have you ever felt like that's something where people don't fully understand where your advantages are coming from in the game?
Most people don't really understand that if you're playing aggressive, even if you don't commit much, even if you just like poke with links, you get information while your opponent doesn't. You get attention while you decide when you spend your time on clicking with the links, while your opponent have to react and misinject, miss mule time, miss change reactor from starport to Rex and stuff. It's like most people don't really understand that the difference is so big that like the whole push from Protoss, for example, if you keep poking with the links, if you don't even commit, don't lose the links, you get attention from his screen for a second, 10 times for the first 5 minutes of the game, his push is going to be 20 seconds later. And this 20 seconds is enough to make an extra round of units. And you're going to hold because of this. It's a big difference. And you have to play like this as Zerg most of the time because there was one thing that I think the best player of ever alive was saying that if you're Zerg and you don't know what to do, like you have no information, you don't know which units you should make, you make SZZZ, SDDD. Make half. Because links, they're unique. They can counterattack, they can defend, and they can scout and poke. While drones help you with echo. Because if you commit fully to the Zerglings, you're putting too much into scouting and aggression. If you don't succeed, you're gonna be these three drones behind. While if you do half-half, you're kinda safe, kinda scouting, and kinda go economy. So your opponent have to guess. If, for example, you make half-half and your opponent go full grid, he might get away with it and like get a bit ahead economically, but he have no information. You take his attention with these links because what if he make all the whole round of links, for example, and like you have to do it one time or another. Like sometimes you have to make a full round of links just to like scare your opponent, put a fear in his head that can I make third nexus right now, or is he gonna have 16 links in here? Can I
Yeah.
commit to others to the other side of the map, or he can deny my third bit this at this time because I don't have information, while my opponent does. So StarCraft 2 is a game of information mostly, and if you know how to get it and how to use it, you're gonna be a very successful player.
Exactly. I think that's such a important point. It makes me think like even there'll be times you play someone who's a lot worse than you, and I'm someone who tends to fall into the opposite end of the spectrum where sometimes I get so focused on the efficiencies of my macro. I'm like, I gotta get the extra drone, gotta get the upgrade on this time. And there'll be these games I'll play like a Protoss player who's like 800 MMR below me and just destroys me. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And I look at the replay and they're like, the probe just goes out and like takes the third with one zealot guarding it. And they've got no other units. Like their only units are all harassing. There is nothing defending at all. And like I recently had this issue in Zerg vs Protoss where I was like, man, even these guys who I used to be evenly matched with were destroying me. And I said, you know what, let's try and be more aggressive. Like my overlord kept doing more scouting around the main and going around the edges of the main. I said, let's leave it on the pillar at the front. Let's start, if I think they're being a bit greedy on their gateway units or a bit too aggressive, let's try and build some Zerglings. And I like just won so many ZVPs in the last 2 weeks just because they're first two adepts. They shade in the mineral line, they die, and I kill them with 10 lings at home. Or the Oracle dives and their third gets cancelled every game. And I'm like, oh, wait. Oh my God, for like the last 2 months, I was just letting my opponents get away with being incredibly greedy. I was like, you get a free third and you can harass me whenever you want. You get to do whatever you want in this game. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I was just forgetting because I was so focused on like every attack has to do something big. And it's like, no, I just got to have some pressure, some potential. There needs to be some gathering information, making my opponent play honest and putting the fear in them as well. And that's something I know a lot of players, they play different when they're playing you because you are a player who's more aggressive, but you also have all these options. You have your Nidus Worms, you have your Roach Pressures, but you also have your macro off them. And we see, like, for instance, I don't remember the last time I saw someone not open Banshee against you. Like, people are so worried about your Roach pushes in ZVT.
So,
always Banshee.
so often just opens with random stuff. He just toss a coin to your Witcher and just and that's sometimes annoying when you not pushing with the roaches and he go leap fast 3cc happens. But most of the people really opening bench against me, and it's this is how it works. Like
Yeah.
I go macro and we are even after this, and I feel like if I play Link by Mute, I'm good with Link by Mute, so I'm happy with this game flow. And one more thing about what you was talking, like you need to get your macro better, you need to get like this upgrade and stuff. It's StarCraft 2 is a really complicated game, and you have to always remind yourself that you're focusing. And playing StarCraft 2, you're always focusing on one or another stuff, one or another thing. You have to look at the picture itself like every 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So you think for 1 second what you see, what you can do. If you do it more often, you do it faster. You get decisions faster and stuff, and it's very important. Like sometimes I don't look at the like overall perspective of the game for like a month or something. I just tunnel vision and like
Yeah.
I have to get better with my macro SD 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 SD, but it doesn't work like this. You have to see, react, understand one way or another, and get better just like this. You have no another option. Like you have to
Yeah.
look at the picture itself overall. Like if you keep getting tunnel vision, just remind yourself, please, 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 wait. He boost twice. I can use it. That's a good decision. Good boy.
That's it. Everything in context, right? Like, I feel like when you're first learning StarCraft, you come up with a lot of rules. You're like, when I see this, I have to do this. And the higher level you go, you still add rules, but there become more and more reasons when, actually, you break the rule in this scenario. Like, it's like, okay, if I see, Immortal Sentry, I have to make Ravages to be safe or something. This is a very simple, thing. But then you're like, actually, no, with this variation where they're going for this, they're not going to commit to the pressure. You only want to make like 2 Ravages. Like, you get like infinite branches of reactions within reactions. And also times where you say, normally that's the rule, but in this scenario, the rule gets broken and you throw it away. And that's this thing where it's like, I think the hardest thing for StarCraft is you have this pressure to be 100% decisive and just commit to something, right? So you don't want to second guess yourself in the game. You want to just go for something confidently. But the problem a lot of players end up with, okay, to do that, I need rules. I need like set plays to follow. And then the game is going to punish you if you want to get too concrete, if you're not flexible enough with your rules, if you don't learn when to use the rule, when to just throw the rule out the window and freestyle, or to come up with some other new response, you get punished. It forces you to constantly adapt as a player. And you can set up rules when you're early on to get better at injecting your hatcheries consistently, to find a rhythm to spread your creep. But as soon as it comes to strategy competition between you and your opponent, as soon as you start doing something that's really good and works for you, it's a matter of time until the players on the other side, Protoss players, Terran players, other Zerg players, say, okay, he's doing that thing. And whether it's an individual player countering you or a meta shift, there's going to be something that makes what you like doing way harder and not the best thing to do anymore, right? There's always going to be some strategic shift where, what is the point in StarCraft? It essentially is 2 dudes wrestling, right? And like, you don't just let the guy do what he wants. No, you try to fuck him up. Like, that's the number one rule in StarCraft, is fuck up what your opponent wants to do. You want to ruin their path. You want to ruin their rhythm. And it forces you to just go, this thing that I got really good at and I loved and I had great success with for a few weeks, it doesn't work anymore. Throw it out the window. Maybe we'll bring it back 6 months from now when the meta changes. Maybe some of those skills carry over, but I need to reinvent the way I'm playing or adjust it in a big way to go with the new meta, right? And that's this very difficult thing because you're constantly doing that. And as a pro player, I mean, you're playing cups all the time. People, like, you must pretty regularly hit a point where a build just stops working, right?
I shift from this build to a bit change meta of this build and change build order so it can suit meta. Usually, I like almost all my builds are just made on the fly. Like I just see something, I have my idea in my brain, like, actually, this might work if I do this and this and this. I can actually punish him. And then I play like 2 months of this build, everybody losing, and then they start to adapt. I check their adaptation and like, but if I change this and build and they still don't scout this and don't see this, I still can break them. I change it 2 more months, they find the way. Like,
Yeah.
they have to adapt, And I was winning like quite a lot with this kind of all-ins, especially in ZVP because I know ZVP is my best matchup probably because I like it. Like there is so much all-ins. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you can like I have about I wouldn't say 10, but about 7 ways of proxy hedge. Like it's disgusting for products really. And if I am doing it, I like since I'm very adaptive player. Like I don't when game gets to the same strategy, same game every game for like a week. I cannot think anymore about StarCraft. Like I just wanna. I had enough of this game, just too much. So I'm trying to do something spatial because I'm really tired of StarCraft. Because I'm playing for 10 years, same strategies and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's actually the reason why I make new builds and new reactions. And I'm trying to play chess with my opponent while he's trying to play soccer against me.
I like that analogy. I like that. Yeah, he's trying to just kind of out sprint you and
Yeah,
just be more
yeah, yeah,
athletic,
yeah.
and you're like, no, I don't want to play the same game, right? And I'm kind of the same to a certain extent, where there is nothing that makes me more just uninterested than like, oh, I'm gonna play gasless Zerg versus Zerg into roaches versus roaches, where like you both do the most static safe opening with no
Mm,
interaction, and then you take your third with roach speed and you both go +2
yeah.
attack +1 armor, and then you like run roaches into each other. I mean, there's still a lot of detail to that, but for me it's like going into an arm wrestling match with my opponent where it's just pure strength, right? It's like whoever can micro the roaches in 3 places better over like 10 minutes. And for me, I'm like, oh no, I want to go mutas. If I know my opponent's a roach boy, I want to go mutas. If I know they're a muta boy, I want to go the infestors and the vipers and the hydras and shit. Like I always want there to be different units in play that create these very unique edges. And like you said, I mean, I think there's dudes out there who've been playing for 10 years who would be very happy to be playing the exact same strategies every game every week, and that's what they want. Shout out to my boy Mechanics Bergman, sort of. I'm sure like sort of's dream is every game to be exactly the same, where he can just execute that 1% better, and that because that's what he loves. And there's a lot of players out there that love that honing the execution. They want to just get that execution that tiny little bit better, but you're looking more at the game through the strategic lens. And I mean, you came from Warcraft 3, right? So were you always this sort of player? Was it always a bit more strategy, mind games, tricking your opponent, a bit more of the chess game?
Uh, Actually, in Warcraft, there was not too much, like, there was not too much strategies in the meta. I was trying to be a bit different from the meta. For example, against Orc, I was trying to play ghouls. That's
Oh,
actually the only matchup I was playing different from meta. All other, like, Undead versus Undead, I was playing the Lich Garg every game, and it was meta. Versus Elf, I was playing Decay, Masgarg, and it was just like Mutos, perfect. But versus Orc, I was going ghouls into Destroyer and Worms, and it was really good. Like the only
yeah.
matchup I was different, but all other I had to play Standard because Standard was the most strong way to win.
I mean, at the point, so when did you start playing competitive Warcraft 3? Because I know you kind of got into tournaments looking at your Wikipedia page end of Warcraft 3, like before StarCraft 2 came out, you had some results, but like were you playing for many years before that competitively? Like when did you start actually doing online cups?
Start online cups in Warcraft 3
Yeah,
in
or going to LANs for
2006. 2006. I get my first internet connection. I could stop going to clubs with my friends to play, and my first internet connection was 2006, and it was really something special.
Hells yeah.
Oh, it was not dial up anymore.
The old days, man. I mean, there
Oh,
would have
yeah,
been
it was
some
terrible.
special memories. I'm sure, everyone gets eliminated. A whole bunch of young boys, nerds getting drunk after the tournament as well. Did you have much success at your early tournaments? Was it kind of you were just there to like just have fun at first, and then you steadily got more competitive?
Actually, like when I had no internet, I was still competing good. Like I was playing against my friend only,
Mm.
and we was going to Kiev for LAN events, and like I did actually, I did even get top 8
Oh wow.
at the LAN event. While I had no internet, I had no. Yeah, I'm very stubborn,
That's
I
um
guess.
that's
Yeah,
sick, man. I mean, that's
and then
crazy.
I get internet, and in like 1 month, I start to win LAN events, winning some money, some mouse pad, keyboards,
Hey.
and even some money. It was good.
I
Good
mean,
old
that's it.
times.
How old are you now? You're what are you like 28 now?
31.
31? Oh my god. You got your baby face, man. So handsome. I always think you're younger than me, but we're like the same age almost. You're almost the same birthday as my girlfriend actually. You're like 2 months younger than me. Just younger than me. But yeah, I mean those old days, dude. You bring back a mechanical keyboard from a tournament back in 2000, you're like, fuck yeah, boy. Like that would be like
Cool.
I remember winning
Cool.
like a couple $100 of internet cafe credit so I could play at the internet cafe when I wanted to. And I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
actually, that's like back in these days, what 2005, 2006, I was playing Dota too.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
because the Dota was a map in Warcraft 3, you know?
Of course.
This came, and I was playing Dota, and I was playing good. I
Well,
was,
how big was that
my
in
team was,
Ukraine? Because Warcraft 3 was always harder to find people. Like, if you were at a LAN, just like a local LAN center, you couldn't really find good Warcraft 3 players very often, but you could always find everybody playing Dota. Not that they'd be good, but like everybody was into
yeah,
it, right?
yeah. And I even had, my team was best in my town.
Hey. Did you guys have t-shirts and stuff? Like in,
No,
no? You didn't have the
no,
bling? So the other
no.
nerds are like, oh, those are the elite nerds over there. Those are the fucking boss nerds, man.
No, I stopped when I get internet connection. I just stopped playing Dota. I was like focused to Warcraft 3 because I loved the game, and it was a good old times when I could spend so much time doing what I want only, and
Yeah.
young days.
Dude, it's cool to
Yeah,
go back there. I mean, as we said, there wasn't that much diversity. You kind of followed the meta, other than the ghouls versus orc. But it's because I mean, if you think about the strategic shakeup, Warcraft 3 was on the same map pool for like 10 years at that point almost, and it was the same map pool, the same players. It wasn't exactly something where this is one of those things where like if we were still playing the same balance from 2012, like you'd have like Stefano could come back with zero practice and still be insanely good right now, right? Like you'd have these players who wouldn't really need to practice nearly as much. Don't get me wrong. Um, Mechanically, there's some difference, but that's not as big. Like there are certain things you can bring back now with the game the way it is in Legacy of the Void. I think it's fast enough that it's like, okay, you're not practicing, you're not up to date with the meta. There's so many new strategies and things. You can't really do that, even if the meta stays completely stable, nearly as much. But back then, you were dealing with these guys who'd been competing at the top for a long time. And they had, there could be a guy who's like, oh, I haven't practiced this in a year, but I did it for 3 years straight before that, like every day. So they could pull
hmm
that out of their brain and just execute it so goddamn well. So I don't think that was as much of a conducive environment for creative strategies, right, in Warcraft 3. Whereas I think StarCraft 2 has given you more balanced shakeups over the years, as well as probably just more strategic diversity in general with the way the
yeah,
economy works
way
in
more.
SC2. So it's definitely
Way
more your game. You're not kind of going, oh, I wish Warcraft 3 was huge and then I could play that.
I had my time in Warcraft 3. Even actually, what's funny, like I stopped playing Warcraft 3 and started to play StarCraft 2 because it was fun for me. It was way more fun because I was tired from Warcraft 3. Then I played Zota Cup. I won Zota Cup without playing like for 2 weeks. I was like, no, this game is too easy. And I go play StarCraft 2.
Oh my god. That's like StarCraft 2 player attitude right there, man. You're just like, this is too easy. I wanna I wanna feel a little bit upset after losing my games and make things as hard as possible. I mean, actually, that being said, I've always wondered, there's a spectrum of players. And I've never known with you. I've seen you after hard losses, and I've talked to you after hard losses, and you're always like, I could have done this better. I wish, you'll be like, man, I'm a bit annoyed. Like, everyone's annoyed after a hard loss. But I've never seen you, like, Drogo smash the table or something like this. Do you rage sometimes? Have there been times, especially when you were younger, where you got, like, super fucking mad when you'd lose tournaments?
Younger? Yeah. Like, I broke a few headsets just by throwing them into the wall. But it was Warcraft 3, There was Lost Temple against Orc. Just there was no balance, okay? There was no balance.
Item drop randomness as well was like a big problem in that game, right?
It was not about item drop. Lost Temple is like the map with hill fountain on the center of the map, and you cannot do anything against Orc. Like, it was imbalanced before, and on this map it's just... And you had to play this map on a tournament.
People complain these days. They're like, dude, how can we have Golden Wall in the tournament pool for a few months? And it's like, back in the day, you're like, how about 7 years of Lost Temple? Like, we know this map isn't balanced, but I mean, no one's...
Steps of War. How about 7 years of Steps of War, for example? It's same feeling. Like, the feeling would be the same. Or 7 years of Ulrena.
Oh no, Ulrena! I miss Ulrena, man. Do you remember when people would spawn at 12 pool and you'd go and build a hatchery to block the ramp and they couldn't get through? Oh, I missed that map.
But if they go with the drones and mineral walks, they still can kill
you. Didn't work versus you. See, worked versus me. I was small brain. My lings would start running around the map. It'd take forever. I'm like, oh, you've got spines finished by the time I get there? This is really sad. Dude, yeah. It's actually kind of crazy how those strategies have evolved. But, okay, you raged at some imbalance and stuff in the early days. But SC2, you've always been a bit of a cool cucumber. Like, do you ever get angry? Like, what's your process like if you're just getting destroyed by Terran? Maybe cast your mind back. I think late Heart of the Swarm, I was talking to you at a tournament and you were complaining because you felt like there was like no way to surprise Terran and you just were really lost in the matchup. I think it was late Heart of the Swarm. I remember having a conversation many years ago with you. So maybe like, has there been a point where you've had to go through some sort of process to keep yourself calm and focused in these intense moments?
Sometimes your hands you just have no idea what to do because, like, the way you understand the game is not working for you at all, and the balance of meta or balance plus meta right now does not fit you at all. So you just have to understand and forgive and wait. There is not much to do except, like, you can try to change your understanding of the game and involve and improve and stuff, but if you do so, you have a huge chance of burning out because you might not succeed and spend too much motivation to play StarCraft extra that might not give anything to you, and even more negative emotions that you did not succeed. And it's going to be harder for you to force yourself to play more StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
Because, like, we are all programmers, all who playing something professional, they all know that every day you have to keep telling yourself, keep trying to convince yourself That's the right word. Convince. This is what you do every day. You're trying to convince yourself that you want to play more. If you succeed, you're gonna improve every day. If you don't, you're gonna get tunnel visioned and play more and get no results, get no improvements, and get sad and get demotivated. That's actually this is what so much newcomers who is like, oh, I can do better and better and better. They don't really understand it, but when they face it, they like, it's so hard to improve.
Yeah.
For real, I spent all my stamina and I cannot do anything after.
It's actually insane. So do you just, so it's mostly managing your expectations if the balance is against you, but also just kind of having a calm long-term viewpoint, right? So you're trying to like not base your kind of happiness on individual results, right? You're kind of saying, look, like win or lose this tournament doesn't change my happiness or my focus. It's more about the long-term outlook as as long as you're kind of innovating and being creative. Like how do you kind of talk to yourself if things aren't going well, you're at one of these points where you're not improving, or the balance or the meta feels like it's a bit against you? Like what is your key focus in that point to make sure you don't go down that tunnel of getting upset?
I would say I'm trying to stop playing for a few days a week or something, trying to play some other games or do some real life stuff, just not focusing on StarCraft 2 at all. And then when I get the feelings that I want to play StarCraft, not like I'm used to because I have to. No, because I want to. I want to do something special. I want to enjoy. That's the moment when you have to play, and you have to play the way you enjoy. This is why I want so much, because I enjoy play chess.
That is actually so huge. I love that waiting until you want to play. Like, I actually had a guy tweet at me the other day. There's a player, the name is evading me right now. And his whole thing, he's like, I'm going to be the next StarCraft GM. I started low. I really enjoy this game. I'm really driven. I stream. Here's my social media, blah, blah, blah. So it seems like a very friendly guy. But he's tweeted, he's like, and he tagged me and he's like, I feel really bad because I feel I'm not enjoying playing and I feel burnt out a little bit, but I feel so bad that I want to take a break from the game. And I was like, whoa, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, okay, number one, it's a video game. You're not even a pro player yet. But even outside of that, even if you were a pro player, the first thing you do when you're not having fun is exactly what you just said. It's like, wait a second, do you just like get on this mill of self-hatred where you're on this like this little mouse wheel? You're like, I'm gonna run faster and that'll fix it. It's the same thing as if you get really angry after a loss and you're like, I'm gonna queue game. And it's like, I think casual gamers know this feeling where they do this at like, they lose their Dota game. It's midnight. They've got work the next day. They're like, well, I'm angry after a loss. I need to play another Dota game, man. And they queue again and they play worse. Of course, they're tired. They're not focused. They lose another game. They're like, well, now I really need to fucking win or I'm going to feel shit. And it's like, this is what we call the rage queue. And like, that's like a bigger version of that for pro gaming or competing is like, oh, if things aren't going well and I'm not enjoying it, I'm just going to play harder, play more equals win more equals more fun. And you're like, no, you got it all backwards, dude. The fun has to come first, right? You got to actually be enjoying what you're doing and motivated, because the moment you're not enjoying it, you're not picking up on all the details. Like you said, if you're like excited to do some fun style that inspires you, you're going to look through the replay even when you lose, and you're going to be excited to find the little twists and turns to make it work, right? You're going to find the little efficiencies because you're like, fuck yeah, I want to make this new proxy hatch where I build spine crawlers in their base work.
Remember it. When you're excited, you remember every move that you're doing because you had emotion connected to it. Emotions are way easier to find in your brain while you're trying to find the right one in like 0.1 second. And if you get emotions, you get the result.
That's it. That's this fascinating thing where I've seen a lot of people who think shutting down their emotions is the way to go. They're like, my favorite player is, ex-Korean player. It could be like an innovation. And, I just love the way he doesn't let anything get to him. And as I improve on the ladder, My goal is to do the same. I lose the game, I feel nothing. I win the game, I feel nothing. And I'm like, oh no, don't do that. That's terrible. Like, just because he doesn't display emotion doesn't mean he's not feeling it. He's just learned to control that emotion. Innovation still feels very happy. He's just making sure he doesn't do the outward expressions. It's like when you watch, I always talk about like Roger Federer as a tennis player, because I think he's a good example of some people like, oh, he's so icy, he doesn't show anything. I'm like, yes, he does. He definitely is super fucking mad at himself half the time. He's super excited and happy half the time. But you see it in very small facial things because he's trying to make sure he stays controlled and doesn't let the emotion run over him. So he'll get like a little bit stern and talk to himself a little bit. He'll get a little bit happy and like, pumped when things are going well. But that's just a level of control. And that takes years and years of practice to get to. And in the meantime, you should not try to shut down your emotion, right? You shouldn't at the same time let rage overrun you. Or, you win a game and you're like, I'm the fucking god. Yeah, I can't be stopped. Like, you don't want to do that. But there's a thing about, like you said, harness that emotion and go with it and go with what you enjoy in StarCraft, right? And I think that's such a cool way of saying, hey, this is what you should do to enjoy the game. And even if you're a beginning player, this isn't just pro gamers. It's like, if you love flying mutalisks around people's bases, go mutas and find a way to make it work. Don't feel like you've got to do whatever Cyril did in the last World Championship finals. Like that's not a fun way to play StarCraft, and it's going to lead you to like a depressing StarCraft experience. And I think it's the same for any competition.
Totally agree with you.
Sorry, what was that?
Totally agree with you.
Why, thank you.
That's the way you have to. Like, any other way, there is a way. You can play so much, 20 hours a day, no sleep, keep practicing your macro, and I don't know, keep puking from StarCraft because you cannot do same stuff anymore every day. But then somebody gonna win you because he like it and he understand it better because he like it. While you have tunnel vision, you just go strategy A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then he find out that it can be Z at the start and you go the wrong way. No way to win for you then. And it's really hard to keep it all going in the right direction with the right attitude.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, like, you not only have to get emotions, you have to firstly understand when you get it, how you get it, then try to control it. And then you improve like really good.
I think that's such an important point there. And I think this is cool because, I think a lot of what we talk about here with mindset carries over to anyone enjoying anything, pursuing any skill or profession. There's a lot of, I think, general life lessons in learning and succeeding at anything very hard. And I think StarCraft's one of the goddamn hardest things. It's so friggin' hard, man. So I wanted to talk a little bit about players are fans as well, but we don't as often hear who they're fans of. And I'm curious because you play a very different style. We've talked about that a lot. You're a free thinker, I think. You don't just follow the pack. Is there been any player or any play recently? Doesn't necessarily have to be Zerg, that's kind of blown your mind. Has there been anything that just made you go, ooh? Or are there any players you're following and watching a lot to learn strategies from at the moment?
I don't think so, actually. Like right now, I'm trying to understand how to the game versus Terran while getting ahead and checking settles, replays and stuff. But like, there is no player who I like adore and like, I want to see what he's doing because I want to copy. There was one player before live because he was playing like, I don't know. For me, he was just the most talented player of all time. He was doing the stuff that nobody could ever expect from him because he understood the game better than anybody else, and I was always waiting for his games to get something new, to understand who, wow, you can really do this strategy from this opening. Wow, that's genius. And I'm not sure that I can say about anybody else. Same stuff.
We had a similar little. I had a laser on recently, and he also was talking about life was his idol as a player, and he also was saying I think probably the greatest of all time and one of the most talented players, and this is just looking at what they did at a time where Zerg was we felt it was so restricted, I think, at the time, when Life won a world championship and got second place in a world championship. I remember especially the second place to SOS was a time where I, as a Zerg player, felt very helpless. I felt very unable to compete with the Blinkstalker Sentry Protoss play. Obviously, there was like the Swarm Host play was this like necessary evil that a lot of Zerg players kind of gravitated towards, but a lot of them didn't enjoy it. I learned to enjoy it because this was my job, so I kind of learned to find beauty within it. But it was a hard time. The mass Raven mech that people finally figured out in the last year of Heart of the Swarm was a special sort of cancer, I think is the best way to describe it, because that was just seeker missile spam, auto turrets, and most importantly, point defense drones. So you could not kill the units. They would put down a point defense drone. This was an ability for anyone who's new to StarCraft. It was a little drone, 200 energy, and for 10 energy, it could block a projectile. And all Zerg anti-air is projectiles. So Corruptor shots, Hydra shots, Queen shots, anything like that. It was just like, so each one of these for 100 energy would block 20 shots, and it would regenerate energy as it went. They would last a very long time. I believe there was even an upgrade that would make them and auto turrets last a lot longer. So they would, like, you'd put down auto turrets, they would last for a long time back then. They didn't do as much damage. But sometimes you'd fight somewhere. You'd come back and fight there later, and there'd still be a pack of point defense drones sitting there.
180, I think.
Sorry?
180 seconds.
180 seconds, 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, one of my biggest wins, and I was never a very successful player, was WCS 2015 when Happy was doing that. I think before the best players were doing it as much. Nice. And I remember like even the interview, Apollo was like, so your whole win was basically based off you were just trying to like catch him screwing up and then chain fungal every Raven down. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. And he's like, well, isn't that like a huge gamble though? Because like you should never really land it. And I was like, number one, what else should I do? Number two, I land that every game because I've practiced it 1,000 times, and I always either get killed or I win by chain fungling 20 ravens, and I kill 20 ravens with fungal and then I win the game. And I was like, I'll take it, I will take it. Happy got distracted from my swarm hosts, ran his ravens a little bit too far forward. I chain fungled them and won the game. And it took me 45 minutes of literally just microing, looking for that one opportunity, but I landed the fungal and won the game. And that was definitely a different form of StarCraft. Legacy of the Void has a lot more options. There is a lot less kind of static situations with lack of counterplay. I'm sure you remember running roaches into a Nexus that was shooting as far as a siege tank with a wall of sentries and stalkers and going, oh God, I can't break this. I don't have Ravagers in Heart of the Swarm.
I remember Pylon Overcharge for 25 mana.
Ooh.
I was playing Drogo in DreamHack Leipzig in the final, and they fixed this 3 days after.
Oh, dude. That is the perfect...
He was 3 pylon rushing me every game.
His adepts were also insane at that. The adepts were... I think they had 230 hit points that tournament, as opposed to the 140 they have now. They literally, like... plus 50% hit points, I believe.
But I was more pissed about 8 overcharge from one unit. It's
the Protoss testicle, as I called the mothership core.
I actually remember your game against Happy when you drop the queens with roaches and make night.
Yeah, the roach drop into Nidus. Yeah.
Yeah.
The was it Jadong or? I think it was Jadong's all in from, he killed Beyond with it back in like WCS America a few years earlier. And it was this ancient game I remembered. And it's like the most all in you can go, where you're like, well, if you drop, you can't reinforce the drop. But if I'm all in, why not double down and Nidus roaches in to reinforce the roach drop? Yeah. I'm glad you remember that game. That was one of my cheesiest stage wins. Yeah.
It was a good, like, I liked it. It was a very good calculated all in, and you actually did it from what you've seen, and that's what I like in StarCraft 2 games, when somebody outsmart another player.
I appreciate that, because I remember that moment, and I'd done that build maybe once or twice, only a couple times before. So it's very much a situation where we were both very tired. It was like a 6 or 7 hour day, because Happy just plays these Mech Raven games. So it was like we finished at like 1:30 a.m. Germany time. We were in the studio in Cologne, and I was like super jet lagged. So by the time we were playing that map, it was the equivalent of maybe like 9 a.m. back home. Like I'd been up all night essentially, with one day to adjust to the jet lag. And I remember the previous game, Happy just tooled me with like the basic Hellion Banshee harass, and I was like, oh shit, like I can't even defend basic harass right now. That's my condition. He's really greedy. From what I've seen, he's not looking out for this. You know what? Let's just put everything in one build. All I need to do is hide it. I don't need to do any fancy execution or micro to make it work. It's just hide the build, hit the main base. If he doesn't have his units in the right position, doesn't have his tanks up, we can do it. So it's always cool, I think, when you have the poise to make that sort of decision. Those are also the decisions where if your opponent defends it, there's always a lot of people in the Twitch chat and your fans going, why the fuck did you do that stupid build? That got crushed. And you feel a bit like an idiot. So you've got to be willing to accept that risk. And I'm sure you've probably had people tweeting at you or messaging you on Facebook saying, I had money on this match play. Why'd you do that strategy? Crazy gamblers, man.
How could you lose 2 drones to the first three? I was playing NA West from Ukraine with 220 ping, and you...
He's like, dude, I mean, I bet a couple $100 on this match. What the fuck, man? You're like, maybe not the best idea to bet on cross-server tournaments played in the wee hours of the night. Crazy gambling messages are one of the funniest things all esports athletes have learned to deal with over the past 5-6 years, since that's got really big. Crazy gamblers love getting angry. Of course, they're nuts. They are actually insane. They're like, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, I get putting a lot of money if you're a gambler on like a big GSL match or something, but I find it so funny when they're like, oh, it's the OSC weekly number 32, you know, and I bet $1,000 on it. I'm like, are you fucking insane? Like, the players are playing for so little money. You don't know if the player's focused. You don't know if the player is a bit tired or is like trying new strategies out. You don't know if they're working their hardest. Like, it just seems that crazy gamblers. But that does bring us on to another point, I guess, which is, you know, winning those cups and doing well in them, but also maintaining your cool and dealing with the losses after a result. You've had 2 big second places, one series away from the championship, 2012 Bucharest, 2016 versus Drogo that you mentioned. Sometimes people say, and I just want your take on this, they say, second place is even harder the next few days to deal with than getting round of 8 or round of 16 because you were so close, you know? Other people say, hell's no, I got second, I got more money, I still played well. Yeah, of course it sucks, like I'm a competitor, I want to win, but that's no, I'm much happier about a second place than a round of 16. Do you remember ever being especially crushed after any of those? I think 2012 was versus Nurtio in the finals.
Yeah, it was against Nurtio in the finals, and I didn't really care. I was happy to get to the finals, and I was like, first Nurture is going to be 50-50 anyway, and every map was like one banning away from winning, even though I lost 3-0, but like it was link banning for us every game. It was fun. and against Drogo, I was a bit upset that we had to play only the finals the other day
Oh, really?
because I was like had very good feeling like I can do it. Like I was pumped like really hard, and I felt like I'm focused maximum like right now. And they told us that we play tomorrow, and it was terrible because like when you get this emotional level so high, you cannot go sleep in time because you cannot shut down your emotions. And like I could not really shut down my emotions at 3 a.m. Then I woke up and I felt so bad, like
Yeah.
really like I had a good game plans, but my decisions on the fly was really bad at this day, just because like I burned out during the first day because I had to force myself um, to keep this motivation, to keep this level of brain activity through all the matches, because I knew that I have to be opponents are really strong and
Yeah.
it's very hard for me. And I think it was the biggest problem for me in this tournament. Like I know that if I would play the same time, I would probably like 95% chance of a win, probably, because I
Yeah.
felt like so good. Like I was really like, it's a moment when you see the whole picture, every second, whole picture of the game, and meantime you're focusing on different subject every second and doing task here, 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 here. And I was never over committing this day. I was like, if I do take advantage here, here, and here, I give him the small advantage here, but I'm still ahead. If I do this couple of times, I win the game 100%. And this is what was happening.
Yeah.
It's this condition is very hard to reach, like for real, very hard to reach. I did reach it only because like I was losing to Hydra, and game 3 I did blind all in. He didn't counter me, and I start to believe in my chances. I was like, if I'm gonna keep playing like this, maybe. And this is when my motivation start to grow up, and yeah.
You ramp up into that god mode where everything's clicking and you're always one step ahead of your opponent and you're looking at the right things at just the right moment, and you're premeditating and you know what he's going to do before he does it, and you reach this point where it's effortless play, and people call it all sorts of things, peak performance, like sometimes flow state, where you're not even thinking about time, but the things are just happening and clicking. And then suddenly you're out of the game and you've won it, but you can't really remember all the details of it because it's happening on like a very natural, fluid level, right?
And you have one more thing very important. It's happening not often at all. Like for me, it's like a few times a year when you look at the StarCraft 2 game and why it's so slow.
It's
I mean, do we have like, did you change the game speed or something? Why it's so slow? Like I can go for a run and drones are still mining. Why? Like
yeah.
this is the speed of your brain processing. Like it's not game slower, it's your brain starts to work faster. And when in this situation you feel like your hands are not in time for everything your brains, so you just put it on a line like, some coffee please.
It's so hard. I actually sent you a link just to check out later on whenever you want, where it's a TED talk of a guy talking about flow state and the secret to happiness. And I thought that was very interesting. But what's great about that And what I liked, because my friend always goes on about like this, how he has peak performance whenever he's doing, and he gets into flow state, and he always talks about this. What I like about that TED talk is there's no like secret to it. He's like, he outlines kind of like how they've studied how people get into this like mode where things are happening and things seem to slow down and time bends. But it's like he goes through the key factors for achieving it, but like you're like, oh, this is not easy. This is this is actually still very hard, even when you can't start understanding it more. But it's something I think we should all, as competitors, and you know, you guys should definitely, we should all try to look into seeing if we can achieve that more. It's also something where I think a lot of players, yourself included, have come a long way in the 4 years since that finals, the 8 years since the 2012 finals, and so on, where players are better at calming down and stopping that emotion. You know, what you said about being up till 3 a.m. the night before, you just can't shut down. You know, you're so excited. Exact same story for me. I remember 2012 WCS, and I won the Australia tournament against Moonglade, who was the big boy in Australia at the time. And the next day we had to basically replay the same tournament for the Oceania. It was this really weird format. And I couldn't sleep that night. And I was like so hyped and excited because I got to like win on this stage in front of all the people in my country. And the next day I remember being like a shallow husk of a human because I had no techniques, right? I had no way of like, these days, if I did that, I know I would literally sit there and fucking sit cross-legged, and I would try to meditate for like half an hour and just focus on my breathing, right? That would be a big thing for me, focusing on my breathing. And I would try to just do mindfulness, which is just try to focus on your thoughts. I also have one other big thing I really like to do now. Whenever my thoughts are fucking crazy or I feel really anxious, you know, and I'm like, fuck, man. And I like to focus on my breathing. And I just imagine, and this is just a weird little thing that I came up with, I imagine I'm a rock in like the waves of the ocean next to the cliffs. And I'm just like, I am that big boulder just sitting there, and all my thoughts, everything happening in the world around me are these waves just crashing over this rock. And I don't give a fuck because I'm a rock, and that's it. I focus on that image, and it calms me down, and it allows me to just kind of go, oh yeah, this shit doesn't actually affect me. Like I don't actually need to be affected by my anxiety or my crazy thoughts. And it's this weird calming exercise I came up with. It just kind of inspired from learning about mindfulness meditation and stuff. But is there something, if you think you could go back and talk to yourself from 2016, that's staying up, you know, you're doing really good, your momentum, are there any tips you'd give yourself to try to reset and calm down and get a good night's rest and be in a good condition the next day? Is there anything you've learned since then?
Actually, I'm still hopeless in terms of trying to not feeling, not being scared. Like I do often lose because instead of thinking about how to win, I'm scared of losing, and that's the worst stage that I'm fighting against most of the time. And if I convince myself that I don't give a f- about this, it's all good. I'm on the flow. If I don't, I have to meditate to try to get it out, and I'm not sure that I can do it. Like, it's really hard. I'm a very emotional person, and it's really hard for me to get out of the emotions that grow so much during the last 10, 20, 60 minutes or something.
Yeah, dude. I mean, there's something, it's the rush as well. When you're competing at a tournament, there is a rush like no other when you've been training, you know, your whole life. Every time you get up on that stage, it's very exciting. Every time you win, especially when you get that beautiful, everything's going for you. It's like, oh, it feels so good. You know, everything's clicking. It's hard to tap into that and then to just switch it off and and rest. Like we wish, you know, this is the thing, like if we become cybernetic organisms, right, we like combine ourselves with technology. You know, pro gamers, the first thing we're getting is literally a little light switch on our arm, and you flick it and it switches that mode on, and then at the end of the day, time to rest, you flick it off and you're like, oh cool, I'm just like gonna go to sleep now and chill out. And the next day you get in the stage, you flick the switch, you're like oof, instantly in the zone. That's the dream, and we are infinitely far away from ever being able to do that just with our own mind. You know, our mind is an enigma, right? It's so complicated, it's so hard to understand. But it's the constant battle. It's why it's, I think, so impressive in recent years when I see Serral get in these terrible situations in a game and knuckle down and fight his way back. And I'll always think, for like, when I think about Serral, is the match against Rogue, which I really think is the match he was pressed the most by a pro player in a big match at BlizzCon 2018, where Rogue just did so much shit to him to fuck with him, and like there was sweat dripping down Serral's face by the end of that match. I was like, oh shit, I've never seen Serral like this stressed physically from a match. But it was the same match where, because Serral withstood everything that Rogue threw at him, you saw there was the famous shot where it went to Rogue a few minutes before the end of the game, and he's just like, he had this look of like, this guy just won't die. I've nidused him with lurkers 26 times. I've killed 100 drones this game. He just rebuilds them, defends, and he just has better Viper micro than me and is happy to sit there and wear me down. And it was kind of crazy to me, because I was like, okay, that's impressive when a player can step up and hold on in that situation. But it's very rare to be able to do that in StarCraft, where our opponents are always trying to stop us finding that point. They're always going to find a way to disrupt our flow. Like you've been saying, you got to stay fluid and flexible. You can't go into a match going, I'm going to do X, then I'm going to do Y, then I'm going to do Z, and then they just like proxy racks you or something, and I can't do my strategy. I'm so screwed. It's such a punishing game, man. It gives you, I think, no matter what, the more StarCraft you play, you just get mental toughness, because you are forced to deal with shit that you don't want to have to deal with. And you're just like, no, bad shit happens in every StarCraft game, because that's your opponent's goal, and it's up to you to deal with it. So, yeah, man. I mean, I think whenever I talk to a pro gamer, someone like yourself here on the show, it's really interesting for me, because you guys are the elite. For me, people who compete at StarCraft every day are literally just putting themselves through the hardest mental challenge every day, every game. So, yeah, I don't know if there's a question in there. Pretty much just saying much respect, man, because it is a tiring game.
Yeah. And as I said, you just convince yourself that you're not tired. And this is how it actually works every day. And about Serral, actually, I think he's playing worse than before. And he has less motivation than before. From games I see from him, he's not as... I think it's harder for him to keep his motivation on the same level, to get the joy from where he get it before.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like Serral is not on the same level as before.
He doesn't feel like it, right?
Yeah. While Reina, I feel like he didn't reach his mental roof.
The roof, yeah. He's still, he looks like he's gaining momentum. Like he's happier and more excited every tournament.
Yeah. Well, Serral is like, he's still very good, and he was on the best level, but I feel like maybe he is not getting this motivation yet. Maybe he can find the way, but what I feel right now, I felt this moment when he stopped playing like a god,
Yeah.
Like there was no mistakes. No, like he was thinking about every moment in the game. Right now, it's not like this. It's still very good. It's still by far like I'm no close to Serral and whatsoever. I understand it, but the feeling that I get is maybe true, that he's maybe not getting enough motivation right now, or he's trying to find it. And if he's gonna find it again, GG's.
Yeah. I mean, that's such an enigma as well. So I think it's hard to find that. I think we've seen this though. There's lessons to be drawn from other sports, and especially 1v1 sports, where there are points where a player hits a peak and they want to just keep doing the same thing that got them there, but you won't find the same motivation because the challenge is stale. oh, I'll just do the same thing I did 2 years ago. It's like, no. You need new goals, right? You need new challenges. You also need to reinvent yourself, not just to surprise your opponents because they get better at countering you, to keep it fresh. Our own brains thrive on variety, and variety is the spice of life, and it goes for competition as well, where we've seen players change their style completely in sports. You'll see a tennis player change their racket, change their grip, change their style, often for longevity because they're getting older and they need to put less strain on their body so they can extend their career. And they will become bad or irrelevant for 6 months or a year. They'll become a lot worse because they're learning a new way of playing the game, but then they can get even better once they get good at that thing, right? They invest in getting worse while they learn a new style. We see fighters who are really expert at one skill. Maybe they're good at striking, but they're not as good at wrestling. And they have to go back to the drawing board and become worse for a while and really dedicate themselves to this new way of approaching the fight game. I'm going to become a tip-top wrestler. I'm going to just approach the game in a different way. And when they come back, you always see a different level of engagement and excitement and joy from that competitor, right? Where you can tell the game is fresh for them again because they found a new way to tackle it. It's this new challenge, and every achievement they make with that new skill set, it's like a new achievement. It's like it's their first time beating that player because they're beating them with a new toolkit, right? And I think that maybe, this is just throwing it out there, I've never worked with Cyril. I don't have a super close relationship with Cyril. But basically, maybe he needs to do something a bit more drastic strategically to be more aggressive or to be more assertive, right, in his game. Maybe that if there's some strategic twist, some way he can change his focus, because I think just sitting back and looking to absorb and defend attacks for many, many years as a Zerg player, I think that gets tiring. I think when he first got to the next level, part of it was him mixing in his Ravager Queen timing attacks and getting some free wins, mixing in some of that. But he was still 90%, I'm going to sit there and you come at me and I'm just going to adapt and respond and go around. But at a certain point, he's letting his opponents take the momentum. If I really felt there was a serious motivation issue with Cyril and I was his coach and talk to him, I would talk to him and I would probably, try to figure out a way to, and I don't think we're at that point yet. I think he's still a god. But I would definitely be like, hey, what can be an exciting new challenge as a player? And I think this is something every player has to do at a certain point where they've been sticking with the same toolkit for too long. Find a new challenge, find a new style, because that's going to reinvigorate all of your passion for wanting to improve again.
Yeah, when you get into the point where you succeed with your goal, and he did succeed with almost all the goals, I feel. At this point, it's really hard to set up a goal that will keep your motivation going up and up and up again. Because if you want your motivation to go up, you need to set higher goal, because I did achieve this kind of goal already. And what is the BlizzCon champion goal?
Yeah.
I did win BlizzCon. Okay. Mars champion goal, universe champion goal. That's that's the goals he need, like the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Something special. But like, yeah, I am Katowice goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also, yeah, I mean it could be, do the same thing, do the BlizzCon, but get the Katowice for the first time, but it's also, maybe do it with a new toolkit. And you know what? Like Chat pointed out, hey, Cyril has been more aggro even in some of his losses recently. And I do agree. Like maybe he is trying to reinvent himself. Maybe he is trying to find new styles. But I think a trap a lot of us fall into, I'm not saying Cyril does, is we go, cool, I'm going to learn some new stuff, but they don't really identify as that player. And in high pressure moments, they still go back to their default. And that's kind of what has to be reworked sometimes for players, is like, you got to be like, no, like I can't reinvent who I am and at the same time still try to clutch to winning every tournament. I might need to lose a bunch of tournaments while I'm rebuilding and really reinvent myself. And doing a true reinvention of yourself as a player is the hardest thing. I'm not a massive Brood War expert by any means. I barely know Brood War, though I watch it casually as a fan. And, I remember people telling me that the reason they thought Flash was such a god is because he was so hard to beat in Pro League because he reinvented himself every week and he did such different styles, and he was just a completely different style, executed to perfection very often, and there's different players that have done this. So, I mean, that's a really interesting thing. I'm really excited to get Cyril on. I'm reaching out at the moment. I'm about to send out some feelers, see if we can get him to come on the show, because I think he actually is probably part of why he's gotten to where he is and why he is so good. And we're, sitting on the sideline saying, oh, maybe he needs to do that. Maybe he needs to do that for that extra 2% or the extra 10%. I think he must already have some great mental techniques to have ascended to such a level, right? And to have got that focus. So I'm really hoping he's willing to share some stuff, and I can at some point get him to kind of just talk about a few of those little details of how he gets his mindset ready, because he did have such a truly powerful run in 2018. What him and Maru did that year is just beyond staggering. Like nobody's done what they did that year before. They just dominated every tournament.
We all hope that what Cyril gonna say is he's not gonna say it's all given. Because if this is how it is, just all hope gone, If he says that, yeah, I learned here and here and here, we are like, Let me think about it. Maybe I can do it.
Let's get some notes out. Like
if it's all given, yeah. If it's all given.
Yeah, I think that'll be a fascinating discussion when we get there. So that'll be really cool, man. We've had you for over an hour now, I think. So we can start to wrap up here. I think it's been a really cool discussion. So people in chat, shout out any questions you want, and we can see if anyone has any really good questions we'll ask. In the meantime, quick questions. When you hear a D-bag, whose face pops to mind? Rapid fire questions.
Again?
When you hear douchebag, whose face pops to mind? Which person in the StarCraft scene? And it's just first thing.
Banda.
Who? Sorry.
Banda.
Oh, Gung Fu Banda. Nice. Cheeser.
Me.
Macro God. And you can't say Cyril. Next macro God. Raynor. Who's incredibly sick, but no one knows it yet. Don't say Clem, because everyone keeps saying kind of Clem and then realizing, no, everybody knows he's sick. It could be a player on the ladder who's like really like new. It could be, I don't know, someone coming up. Is there anyone who you've kind of run into recently on ladder, maybe in an online cup, you've gone, oh, this guy could actually get really good?
I'm not sure. Like there is a few guys who like under 18 and they're all like trying, like Akiron, Max Pax, who else? Cristiano, they're all like 16 or something, and they're getting better.
All right, yeah, a couple of up and comers. It's cool to see that fresh blood as well. What has been the biggest matchup block, the biggest strategy block in your StarCraft 2 history? What has been the one matchup time in a meta where you were like, F this, I have no idea what to do?
Protoss, Heart of the Swarm, Blink Stalker, just 8-gate. Well,
third base century.
There was no tool for real.
The blink all-ins, man. Oof. Lastly, out of these rapid fire questions before we move on to chat, have you had any mentors or coach figures or another player who you've maybe practiced with and shared a lot of ideas with you've kind of had that learning and improvement relationship with in StarCraft?
No, I don't actually.
I thought you'd say that actually.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, not surprised, because I think you're very self-inspired. Like, I think you've inspired Scarlet a few years back many years back when you guys were on ASA together. I think you influenced her, but I don't think she influenced you so much.
It's actually very funny. Like, I remember we was in team house, and like, if I am thinking about my game, it's not interesting for me, but it's very interesting for me to give a good advice. And I check her game and I'm like, why you make pull here and not here? She's like, explain. Well, if Reaper come from this side, he don't see this, and you. Okay. 1 month after, she stands behind my back, and I'm playing. And why pull is here? You say it should be here. I was like, forget. So in terms of advice, yeah, it's an emotion for me. Yeah, I succeed with advice, but it's way harder to keep them for yourself,
Yeah, exactly. There's something cool kind of living in a house with people when you have a lot more sharing of ideas. I remember when we first all got that experience at different times in StarCraft, and we're like, oh shit, this is like the Koreans are all giving each other feedback and putting their hive mind together. And that's the best way to play StarCraft. I think, for instance, like I think the dream, if we had billions of dollars and like every event was a massive stadium filled with people, like I actually think most players who are more aggressive and cheesy and so on, maybe yourself, but definitely like a Haas, I think they would be top coaches. Like these guys would be the coaches that just design build orders. Like Haas, for instance, is a guy who should be designing build orders for stats, and like teaching them to him and when to do them. But you want the mechanical god executing it. I mean, there's more to it than that, but I think there's like there would just be so much more of people studying statistics, studying your opponents before a tournament. You get this like info of all their builds and all the little details and the tells and things, like the replays, and there's people briefing you. They're showing you a replay. Like if you see this, it means he's doing this. And like the level of play, the more money there is in a sport, it always goes up, right? It always goes up.
Yeah.
And that's something for every sport out there, because you just have so many people working together. And I think with something as complex as StarCraft, it's like, you can do that even more because there's so many things to think about, right?
Too much. Not enough of even one very big brain. It's not really enough. I remember the moment when there was a Red Bull Archon tournament and I was playing with Nurture. It was really, really, really good because I was doing the build and I let him doing everything else. And he was like, after the game, we won the game like with some like he's like, how is it working? Like how? Like I don't understand this build, but it's somehow working and somehow good. But I was playing it so much, and I understood that I can go here and do this and like small stuff, all combined. It's really huge, and when like he could micro this while I could do the proper build, and then he go to macro and I execute it perfectly, we just insta win. And actually that's a good example of what you said about giving the builds to the players with better execution and macro mechanics and stuff. Something else about Overmind. Yeah. So what I think is I feel that I don't have enough of talking and like I'm self complete person, but I would still love to share my skills while listening of other people trying to help me to improve, when with Scarlett, we was very good friends, and I was staying behind her back, and I was trying to understand how does she do this and this, and I always figure out something by myself. But if she would explain it, it would be easier for me to understand more things. And I feel like this is what I'm lacking, most of StarCraft 2 players, because no team house, you cannot practice and get motivation plus help every day. Good old times, of course, it was perfect because we all could grow up together and evolve. And right now it's way harder, even though
Yeah. Oh,
It's so
sorry.
much harder.
You cut out for a second there. Can you just repeat that last bit?
Uh, uh,
It's so much harder,
it's
you were saying?
so it's so much harder to grow by yourself.
Mm.
I can do it, but it's so much easier with someone help. It goes faster.
Yeah.
So the plant grows faster if there is enough people. But if yourself only in here and it's a bit complicated, you have to motivate yourself while I myself. So I'm actually missing these times of team houses and stuff when everybody like right now every team house like there is not much, but every team house they don't really put uh, a goal to improve for everybody
Mm.
to get overall level up. They put a goal to just please practice and improve. That's all. Nobody.
Just practice hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But before, everybody knew the maximum level you're here, and you have to grow here, and you have no way to like stop playing, stop growing and stuff because you're was first all the time, and I really miss those times because it was something that you're just going. If you could do 100%, you had to. There was no other way. And when you succeed,
Oh.
I can do it. I actually succeeded here. Didn't expect it, but this is how it is. Appreciate it.
Nah, man. Yeah, unfortunately, my Discord server's cutting out a tiny bit, but we're still getting everything you're saying. There's just a few tiny little audio hiccups. Apologies to those watching. Don't worry about it, guys. We will have that fixed for the next week, at least in the audio-only version. We're going to start using Zencaster, but I mean, this has been awesome, man. So I'll see if there's any really good questions from chat. I think we've already talked about a lot. Any up-and-coming Ukrainian players that people should know about?
Up and comer Ukrainian. I don't know. Pum, pum, pum. Like there is no player who like grow. I don't know 2, 3, 4, 500 in the past. I don't know months or two. So like all known, all Ukrainian players known, and I'm not sure. Like there's still like Hellraiser
Yeah,
and me, and everybody else is just right below.
fair enough. I mean, Hellraiser, of course, has really come up a lot in the last few years. We've got a question from Oblivious. So, as a known aggressive player, likes to mix in cheeses. They say the cheesiest thing you can do is play a greedy macro game when you're a cheeser. How do you know what games to do the change up and to go hard on your macro rather than commit to the attack?
I usually analyze replays and ladder statistics from my opponents. Especially ladder games. People have habits. We all have sins, and the biggest sin is habit in StarCraft 2, and you just keep doing the same mistake again, 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 again. And if you see it in the build order, just use it. He's gonna do it again and again. I did win hundreds, maybe thousands of games because of this, because I was just checking. His ladder game on Simulacrum. Every game he does the same thing. Third Nexus with only 2 adepts defending. And let's check a replay. His Oracle probably on the other side of the map. Really? Punishment incoming.
Here come the Zerglings, man. I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Where if you get stuck in looking at something as like, oh, this is just a dumb thing. This is just hoping he screws up. And it's like, no, there's calculation there. The most surprising weird attack, which actually doesn't seem to be calculated. He seems to just do every game. I always think of Dark, how he goes this like Lingbane Hydra style against Protoss, but he just does this weird like 50 drone non-Baneling speed, just Baneling Zergling attack on the third. And it's at this really weird moment where the 3 oracles are on the other side of the map always. He waits for that and he hides the lings, sneaks them across the map. And then he hits the natural wall and the third base at the same time. And the Protoss almost always has every unit they need to defend. But it works almost every time because they're like recalling the oracles and the sentries are dead and either the third gets killed or the natural gets busted. Like there's games where stats has been at all the units he needs. You get a little pack of Immortal Sentry, but they're at the third and the units just run in the natural and kill all his probes. And like there's these timings which, you know, it's all about hiding it and finding a way to analyze those details. So I love hearing about all that preparation. I think you're a preparation master, looking for those habits, those little tells. If a player always does the same thing on the same map, they're weak to that. And I think you roll the dice on your strategies a bit, right? If you don't have a pre-planned like that, you like to randomize it. Because I think it's very hard to read what your choice is going to be unless you have a very set plan to counter your opponent. Like I think for me, when I cast one of your games, I can't say the last time on this map in this matchup, Blythe did this, so he's going to do the exact same thing again. I feel like you do try to mix it up a bit, or what do you think?
To have as much diversity as possible. Sometimes I build the map if it's like so much better, just above all the builds I can do on this map. Or if I know that my opponent doesn't know the reaction to this. For example, like Proxy Hatch against Protoss with Roach Link Ravager. I was doing it for like so long and the best players, like 6-8 KMR, didn't know how to defend it. That's it takes some time, you know, and when they do defend it, I change the build. Or I change the pace of the game.
Shift it up somehow.
Yeah. You have to change it, and you change his vision or your aggression or your greed or whatever. Like you just trying to find the way to abuse the things that he didn't knew how to defend.
Yeah.
Some kind of all-in. You use this knowledge that he found the way. Like usually it's someone showing him. For example, like I had an all-in that like most Protoss couldn't defend at all. Like for the past, I don't know, 2 months or 3 months. And then I played Reyna. Game 1 he lost. Game 2 he defended. He figured out the way as Protoss Reyna. That's saying about the level of his understanding of StarCraft. He found the way to beat this all-in, and I'm like, I was checking the replay, trying to find the way. Like, how can I? And I was like, there is no real abusable way because this defense is perfect. I have to change the plan. But if I change the plan on the fly, if I see same kind of defense, I am behind.
Yeah.
I have to change the build. And it does happen from time to time, but because not everybody understands StarCraft 2 very good and can evolve so fast.
That's exactly it. The constant evolution. Be like water. Adjust to your opponent. It's a constant challenge, and that's why it's so fascinating to play. I think this is a perfect point for us to wrap up. Thank you, everyone in chat, for hanging out. Thank you, everyone watching at home. What can we send people? I'm linking people at the moment, and it's down in the description. We've got links to your Twitch page, your Twitter, your Instagram, Bly4EG on Instagram, Bly on Fire on Twitter. Bly on Fire on Twitch as well.
And YouTube, Bly on Fire.
YouTube, Bly on Fire, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I actually didn't realize you were still active there. Oh my God.
Awesome. On YouTube, man, I had best birthday gift ever from my viewer. Do you know the song Toss a Coin to Witcher? Yeah?
Yes, of course.
So there was... okay, there was wait a sec. How how do you call it? How do you say it? I sent on Discord.
Yeah. The choir?
The choir. Is it right?
Yes.
So there was a choir who made it on Russian, and they had like 2 million views on YouTube. And my viewer hired the guy who was singing in this, the main guy who was singing it, to make a like he made the words for this song for me, and he made him sing this song with the words of Bly and his mutants and stuff. For real, it was best birthday gift.
That's amazing. Can we see that somewhere?
Yeah, wait. It's on my channel.
So I'm looking at your YouTube right now, and lots of like stream uploads and stuff. I see a minute 39 video from 2 months ago.
Yeah. This is this one.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That's so cool. I'm going to link that up in chat for everybody. We'll link it in the description below as well. I'm not sure if my stream can hear it. Oh, we can't. Let me just add real quick. We've got to let the audience as well, including the podcast, hear this, even though it won't sound that great through my setup. Give us 1 sec, guys. We're going to get this. We're going to get a video cap device. Sorry, I normally don't have my scene there. So we just throw that. We'll hide it, but we'll have the audio for it, I think. If we just put that down the very bottom of my scene, and we should be able to hear that now. Oh, and of course the audio is not coming through. We're having the same audio issue as yesterday. I'm so depressed. No, let me quickly... Oh, we can't hear it for the audience. Okay, guys, links in the description. Go listen to it. It sounds awesome. It sounds so cool.
Themselves. It's for real. It was like he found this guy, hired him, and he typed all the words. And
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's something you're gonna listen to forever, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's something I can show to my kids.
That is awesome. Beautiful, awesome, man. Well, let's wrap up there. I think it's so cool. I think we've all just made a new life goal, by the way, as I click on the wrong scene, to get a beautiful cover of a song made specifically about our own StarCraft escapades. So if anyone out there wants to get an above and beyond gift for their partner or friend, try to get something in the vein here of that. Toss a meter to your Bly. And thanks for joining me on the show, guys. There's links in the description. Please go follow Bly. You can see Bly playing quite a few online cups. You can see him streaming as well. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on his YouTube channel. And dude, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Thanks so much for inviting me. It was fun. Sharing some motivation secrets, maybe.
Some little tidbits.
It's actually something that most people don't understand, and if they hear it, maybe they think, oh, actually there is something bigger behind what I see, and they see the whole picture. It's different.
And then that's it. I think it's a black box, what StarCraft players go through at the top. We don't talk about it nearly enough, other than a little bit in commentary. We're like, this is the most intense game ever. It's really hard. The whole point of this show was I want to learn more friggin' life secrets from you goddamn geniuses, but I also want to share who all these StarCraft competitors like yourself are with the audience, because, you know, so often we're playing online or we see one camera shot of you on the stage or a few camera shots and a quick interview on a stage. Oh, I felt good. I did this strategy because of this. You know, I want to let the audience share in the other side, which I'm lucky enough to get to see, talking to you guys and seeing you, you know, play and compete and evolve as people. hopefully we can share some of that with the audience as well. So if you guys are enjoying it, please share the video with your friends and family. Bly, once again, thank you very much for joining us. Slap some bacon down in chat to say thank you to Bly, please, everybody. And I'll catch you next time. Hope to have you on the show in the future, mate.